Because you know there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. Not
It's all
conspiracy.
about control. To them we just cattle, numbers, battling each other while they creeping in the shadows, scheming, plotting, clocking your every move, locked in your mind, brainwashed until it's rocking. Got the population operating as they want them, symbolically mocking them, thinking nothing can stop them. So open your eyes to the lies of the evil, the poison in the minds and the lives of your people. And every time they lead you down the line to deceive you, and by then it's always too late to see through the veil that they hide behind, cause your third eye is blind. Better take a stand, we running out of time. Ain't nobody coming to save us, fuck what you had in mind. Arm yourself with the truth and jump behind the battle line. Can we turn it around? Yeah, it's possible. Divided we'll all fall, but united we're unstoppable. This is for the world, this is for the masses, attached to the strings being pulled by puppet masters. This is for the youth, searching for the proof, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some truth. This is for the ones waking up from the spell, beginning to discover themselves. Yeah, this is for the youth, searching for the truth, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some proof. This is for the world. Yeah.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. I'm your host, James Cordner, and tonight I am like wicked excited to have back Etienne de la Boetie². And, you know, the first time he was on, we were talking about that documentary called The Anarchists on HBO. Well, in the meantime, and we'll have him in just a second to give us the rundown, but we have his one of his books here called Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed. And he's got an update about that book. And we're just going to bring him right in and we'll say hello. Etienne, how are you today?
Hey, James, it's great to be with you and your audience, and I'm excited too. And so let's do it.
Yeah, man. So what's new? We have a brand new volume of your book out, don't we?
Yeah, so my book, for those that are not familiar with my work, is entitled "Government: The Biggest Scam in History Exposed." And the thesis is that government was never legitimate, no matter how you do it, whether you do it with a monarchy, whether you do it with a democracy, whether you do it with a constitutional republic. All governments are illegitimate because it's impossible to delegate rights that you don't have yourself to a representative or to a government. You can't be bound by a social contract that you didn't sign. And if, my girlfriend and myself vote to rob James because there's two of us and one of you, doesn't matter if there's three of us or 10 of us or 300 million of us, that would still be illegitimate. And so the whole thing has been the biggest scam in history. And so the thesis of the book is that essentially, when monarchy, which I define as the original intergenerational organized crime, you're going to give us your money or we're going to hurt you, when that was no longer selling, in a kind of like PR campaign, they came up with democracy to kind of trick people into thinking that they had a say. But because it's, intergenerational organized crime, people willing to use deception, violence, extortion on other people, they always knew that they were going to be able to control the outcome of the elections because they would have a disparity of campaign funds. They would, they're willing to use bribery, blackmail, rigged voting machines, unauditable black box voting machines. And so that's essentially what they've been doing is they've been tax farming human labor and human society using the technique of government to rob, control, and enslave humanity. And they get away with it. The subtitle is How Intergenerational Organized Crime Runs the Government, the Media, and Academia. And one of the things the book breaks down is that it's the government and the media and academia working together. And so on the media side, it's monopolized media. It's six, on the old school media side, six monopoly corporations running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries to give everybody the illusion that there's all these different, information sources in society. And then on the new media side, there's 3 to 4 dozen kind of new media, internet search engines, video sharing sites, Discuss, who does comments, Wikipedia, Facebook, um, Twitter, Reddit, Meetup, others that are controlling perception on the DARPA internet. And so they're hiding voices that they don't want you to know are out there. At the same time, they're magnifying, the controlled opposition, fake alternative media, and fake voices that are telling you that government is legitimate, even though it's not. And on the academia side, it is the mandatory government school teaching you that government is legitimate, desirable, and necessary before you're old enough to really evaluate the logic and the morality of that claim. And so I'll just give that as a summary, and then we can talk about kind of like a little bit about the book next. Um, but that's the basics of the scam, is that government was never ever legitimate, and they don't want you to know about it, and the media has been hiding that from you.
Of course. I mean, the media is just another, it is the, maybe the invisible, not so invisible, but fourth, maybe even fifth branch of the government. And we all get taught about the three branches of this government here in the US. And well, there's a fourth, which I would probably say is the corporations, and then the fifth,
Mhm.
which is exclusively the media. Now you could say the media is their own type of corporations, but it's a different type of function, right? It
Mhm.
serves a different function. So we're talking some of these incognito branches of government that are really just the propaganda arm of it. That's the large big media. That's what they do. They
You know,
propagandize the country.
I agree with you completely, but like that's really only half of it. I like to refer to it as control of perception, because
Ooh,
at the same time that they're, propagandizing you, they're also hiding the authentic voices. They're stealing the oxygen from the authentic voices. They're hiding the authentic voices. They're deplatforming them. They're demonetizing them. They're shadow banning them. They're de-indexing their content on YouTube. They've been caught doing that to James Corbett and others. They've
yes.
been caught de-indexing things on Google. They've de-indexed. When the last time I was here on the anarchists, on our Substack, I've got an article entitled "If I'm Wrong About the Anarchists, Why is CIA Google, hiding my article?" And they literally blacklisted the URL of one of the articles that where we were exposing that Anarchapulco was a CIA controlled opposition operation to steer the modern voluntarist anarchist movement into drugs and controlled opposition voices and manufactured drama and all the other little tricks and techniques they were using to try and steer the modern anarchy movement. But like that is, it's not just that it's propaganda, it's that we're also going to be hiding the authentic voices so that most people, unless you're going on the self-directed internet to go search out for yourself, if you're getting your news and your entertainment from broadcasting or from the networks or from the cable news networks, whatever, I mean, it is propaganda, but it's also we're hiding these authentic voices as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's that's a brilliant point, because that's a large part of what we do here is we try to make people more aware, and then inspire the people that we're trying to make aware of these things to have the courage to start speaking up about it as well. Because without loud voices, the message just kind of dies out. You need more people to know this information in order to actually make any sort of change happen
Mhm.
in this world. So this book that you've put together, that you've written, is like a real great condensed, real like comprehensive um take on just exactly what it is that we're dealing with here. I read the entire thing from cover to cover on air just over a year ago, about 14 months ago. That's how I
Mhm.
got my start live streaming. I heard about your book. I ordered it. I got the Liberator back when it was only like a 16 gigabyte little flash drive card,
Mhm.
which I have here somewhere in my desk. But anyways, like so and we got to reading that on air because I wanted to share it, and now we have volume 5, and I was interested to see if you wouldn't mind sharing with us some of the things that you've included. We've gone through, I think since this one behind me came out, we've gone through this bullshit scamdemic of COVID-19 and maybe even a few other psyops that I'm not thinking of now. So what kind of spoiler alerts can we get from you this evening?
So I'm going to actually share some pages from the book here in a second, but before I do, I just want to kind of set it up for the audience that may not be familiar with my work. And what the book is really designed to do is, in my former life, I was a productivity expert for Fortune 500 companies focused on visual collaboration and, how do people learn at the speed of light. And so the book is really designed to wake up your friends, your family, and your colleagues to how the system works, because most people are visual learners and they come to insight much quicker if you show them an example of something versus try and explain it to them. And so if you really want to wake somebody up, you've got to give them, a hardcover book or a documentary. The right documentary can be, almost, as effective. And like one of my goals is to turn the book into a documentary. But it's got to be, if you're going to give them a documentary, you've got to give them a physical documentary versus sending them a link. There's all these like little things that you can do that are going to like improve your chances of getting somebody to that moment of insight. And if unless it's like your best friend or something like that, like if you just send like an average friend a link, they in an email, they may or may not watch it, they may or may not get to it. But if you give them a physical DVD or you give them a physical book, then that sits there. It's got something called permanence, and it either sits there on their desk and and they're going to keep looking at it until finally they act on it, versus if it's in their inbox, it's going to be kind of crammed to the bottom, and and it's lost, and it's out of sight out of mind kind of thing. And so step number one is to give somebody something with permanence. And so step number two is the book is designed to kind of there's a lot of ways that people learn, and human beings are really good pattern recognition machines. And so I'll just kind of go ahead and share my screen here. Hold on one second.
Okay. And I found my Liberator. I'll hold it up to the camera real quick. And it's a
i'll show
neat
I'll show
it's
you
a
the new one here in a second.
excellent. Is it the
And
same
so
style, same format with the credit card sized?
it is a credit card. We've taken it to 64 gigabytes versus 16, and there's now 5 main folders, and I'll kind of get into that in a second. And so the first thing, for people that may already own the book's been completely redesigned from kind of almost start to finish. There's a new look, feel, a lot of the some of the old memes are still in there, but like we've dramatically improved it. And I'll just kind of break it down for the audience. The first part of the book is 20 different techniques used by intergenerational organized crime to create the culture of slavery and tax slavery and how it manifested in each time and place. And in this section of the book, what I do is I break down what the technique is. And all of these governments are running the exact same, formula on all of their tax slaves. And so what we do is we compare Nazi Germany, the US government, the Soviet Union, Russia, and East Germany. And so I explain the technique and then I show what that technique looked like in each time and place. And so, without giving away the whole book, these governments are slipping the legitimacy, desirability, and necessity of having a government to the population as a religion. They're not calling it a religion, but they're using all of the tools and the tricks and techniques of a kind of unethically manipulative religion or a cult, starting with the flag, which is the artificially indoctrinated holy symbol. And so we're going to slide the population of religion. We're not going to call it a religion, but the flag is essentially the symbol of the religion. The holy documents are going to be the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the Germans had one, and the Soviets had one, and the East Germans have one, and they all ignore them, just like our Constitution is completely ignored today. It's a social contract that you didn't sign, but you're expected to be a party to, and so it's not really a contract at all. It's just forced on the population. Then there's a mandatory church school where the children are forced to go, and where the teacher, the priest, is going to teach the children that government is legitimate, moral, necessary, and desirable before they're old enough to evaluate the logic of that claim. Okay. Now, the school is the school is one aspect of how they're doing. It's like the first stage of the training, but then there's really kind of two tracks. And if you just go through the government school system, or you go to private schools where they're teaching the same curriculum to be accredited by the state, right? Then you're going to, you'll ultimately come out believing in the legitimacy, desirability, necessity of having a government, and you'll tithe, you'll, semi-willingly hand over your money to this organized crime system. But there's a second track, and that second track is designed to produce something that is called an order follower. And they're a kind of shave-headed cult member that's willing to shave their head, put on a uniform, the single form, a kind of conformity, a group dynamic conformity, and either, go abroad in crusades and kill whoever they're told by the kind of church leadership of the religion, or in the case of the police, they're willing to shave their heads, put on the uniform, the single form, the group dynamic conformity, and use violence against peaceful people to impose the commandments, the laws of the religion on, raise revenue on their friends and neighbors, put people in jail for victimless crimes, commit, horrible things in the kind of the name of the religion. And that second track starts with a youth program to teach citizenship, blind obedience, and state/flag worship. So now we're going to put the kids into uniforms, and we're going to begin giving them awards, Cub Scout Adventure Loops, Boy Scout merit badges. We'll give them these little booklets to teach them the laws and the commandments of the religion. And then once they are able to regurgitate that back to us in rote memorization, then we give them a little present. And then, that program, in the United States, it's the Boy Scouts of America, and Nazi Germany, it was the Hitler Youth, and Soviet Union, it's the Young Pioneers, and East Germany, it's the East German Young Pioneers. And it's the same program. All these governments are running the exact same program. Now, when the kids get a little older, that program gets a little creepier, and now all of a sudden, we're going to give them guns. And so a lot of people don't realize this, but in the United States, and they don't do it in every community, but there's some programs where, called the Explorer program, where now the kids, are kind of assigned to the military or the police, and now they start going on ride-alongs. They get uniforms, meetings. The Marines are actually running entire high schools. There's like 6 of them in Chicago alone, where the entire curriculum is the Marine Corps. Now we're going to teach them how to kill. We're going to teach them subservience to hierarchical command and control. We're going to teach them, pride of uniform and obedience to federal authorities, among other submissive qualities. And so, that was in the Soviet Union. That was called the Komsomol, and it was the Hitler Youth and the Free German Youth Movement. And so, again, all of these countries are using the exact same techniques. And really, what I'm doing here in the book by taking people through these techniques is I'm using this technique of pattern recognition. Human beings are really good pattern recognition machines. And when you see kind of that all of these countries are literally using the exact same techniques, you're like, hey, wait a minute. I never really noticed that before. That's a playbook. They're running game on the population. And the first kind of part of the book kind of explains what the playbook is, and then gives you the ability to drill down. Now, some of the things that are new in the fifth edition are, in addition to kind of the new look and the feel, is that we've always had the ability in the kind of the EPUB version of the book to drill down, with the hypertext links, to see all of the evidence and the scholarship that supports all of the claims. Well, what we did in the fifth edition is that we now expanded that to endnotes. So now, if you've got the kind of the physical copy of the book, anybody can go and just kind of flip back and verify, the claims without having to acquire the EPUB version of the book. And then we also, the first part of the book, we go through the 20 techniques. The second part of the book is really what we call one pagers. And a one pager is like a deep dive. I call it the executive summary of the executive summary of of a given topic. And so, if you didn't understand that, so it's a religion, and the presidents are kind of the popes of the religion. The Senate and the House are kind of the church leadership. And if you didn't understand that the media was using religious symbolism, most people don't notice these when they come by kind of one at a time, where they're using halos and penumbras to give the pope of the religion, the president, the aura of holiness and the religiosity. If you stack up 36 examples, then all of a sudden the brain, which is really, really good at pattern recognition, goes, hey, wait a minute, that's artificial. They're doing that on purpose. And you kind of get it that, like, hey, wait, they're running game on me. They're trying to make the presidents look like they're holy. Hey, wait a minute. And so these are really, really effective techniques to friends, your family, and others to get in there. And so, some of these are the old ones. I'm going to skip over the old ones, but, I break down the religion of statism in kind of, a little bit more detail. I give some of the best books and short videos, and you can click on these and it pops up the video or the book. It literally pops up the PDF version of the book, which we have on the Liberator, so they don't, disappear. But we break down the shady history of the Constitution, which I like to say, we do a lot with memes. Sign right there where it says we give ourselves the power to make up rules and take the wealth of others. We break down the shady history of the Pledge of Allegiance and how that came about. The short version is the Nazi salute isn't the Nazi salute, it's ours. The Nazis got it from us. It was called the Bellamy Salute, and we did it from 1892 to 1943. And then we switched to the hand over the heart in 1943 when the crimes of Nazi Germany became apparent. I break down the hidden curriculum of the government school system. And we talked about some of its statism. We're going to slip you this indoctrinated, religion, but it's just obedience to authority. We're going to use unethically manipulative techniques to get a kind of obedience and conformity out of the population that we break down kind of uh, in greater detail. I break down the private Federal Reserve and the theft of fractional reserve banking. And so, in many ways, the government is the creature of Wall Street, going back to the quote unquote founding of the country. And so literally one of the first things that the new government did is they paid off speculators that had bought Revolutionary War bonds for pennies on the dollar, because the government at the time had no ability to tax the population to pay off these bonds, and so these bonds had sat outstanding. And so once the federal government was in place, speculators had gone around, literally sent horsemen and schooners, around the country to buy up these bonds that nobody ever thought were going to, get redeemed. And then once they bought all these bonds, the first thing that Alexander Hamilton did as first Secretary of the Treasury is pay them off at 100% of face value. And so, it's been kind of a Wall Street scam from the beginning. But the Federal Reserve part of the scam and the banking part of the scam is we're going to give the banks the ability to create money out of thin air using something called fractional reserve banking, even though it's inflationary and even though it's stealing the value out of everybody else's money. And then that's where the banks get the money to kind of monopolize the world. And I break that down in detail. But now we're kind of getting to some of the new content. And so I'll share just a little bit of the new content, with you and your audience. But one of the new one pagers is called Monopoly, Duopoly, and Triopoly: Control of Society Through Monopolization. And so, if you're allowing these mega banks the ability to create money out of thin air, what have they done with that ability? Well, they've bought up the world with their little paper tickets and digital dollars, and they don't, just leave a single company, because that would be obvious. They leave a duopoly or a triopoly. The only monopolies are the government monopolies. And I kind of break those down, the roads, the police, the defense, organized crime, military, Amtrak, the post office, and the school system are monopolies, and they're all doing horrible. But if you really think about some of the biggest companies in the country, retail goods, it's Walmart and Target. GPU computer chips is AMD and Intel. Retail goods in bulk, it's Costco or Sam's Club. Hardware is Lowe's or the Home Depot. Office supplies are Staples or Office Depot. Sporting goods, you've either got Dick's or Sports Authority. Soft drinks, it's Coca-Cola or Pepsi. If you want to ship something, you can choose FedEx or UPS. Payments is Visa and MasterCard, and politics, it's the Democrats and the Republicans. And a lot of these companies, the majority shareholder on both sides is BlackRock or Vanguard. And so it's a fake choice. It's a Hobson's choice, where you've got a choice of, either of these companies, but the profits are flowing back to the exact same people on both sides. Here's one where we break down, now a lot of times it would be too embarrassing to just leave two companies, so that there's, sometimes there's three, sometimes there are four. But, here's some of the triopolies where, if you say, what are the major newspapers of record in the United States, you're stuck with the New York Times, the Washington Post, or the Wall Street Journal. And you've got CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, and World Economic Forum members and Bilderberg members in each of those. And so if you take a look at the TV networks, you've got NBC, ABC, and CBS. The streaming platforms, you've got Amazon, Netflix, or Disney. Book sales and manipulation of the reviews, you've got Amazon, Books a Million, or Barnes and Noble. If you talk about news networks, you got CNN, Fox, or MSNBC. If you want to talk about search engines, you've got a choice of Google, Yahoo, or Microsoft Bing. If you talk about big telecom companies and cell phone providers, you can choose from Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. And if you want computer operating system, mobile operating systems, you've got Microsoft, Apple, or Android. And the cable companies are Comcast, Time Warner, or Cox. And so is there really a choice? Or has everything been monopolized where you're given the illusion of choice, but they're leaving 2 to 3 companies to kind of continue, that illusion? And I'll take a break there in case you want to throw anything in with respect to, the kind of monopoly duopoly system. But, what do have you noticed that before?
Yes, very long time ago. This has been on my radar for quite a while. Even before, very early on in the podcast, I covered this, and it's something that is largely overlooked by a lot of people. They're not interested in finding out who owns these companies because they're getting what they want out of them. They're getting their entertainment or their resources such as the internet or whatever. They're getting what they want out of these companies. So they don't really the problem is that people don't really care. They don't care to see the truth of the matter. And this is largely how it keeps how it's able to keep going on, you
Mhm.
see. And it's that lack of care that kind of stimulates the duopoly and the triopoly that you're pointing out there, you know, because I and it's a belief because I have to really try hard, but I do believe that if people really knew that information, they might be more interested in diving a little further down that rabbit hole, and they might sit there and go, "Huh, maybe I really don't have as many choices. Are we really as free as we're told we are in this country?" And the answer is no. And it's clear as day once you learn that bit of information, and it's so great what you've done with your book because even on 2 pages, never mind the education system stuff, of course, that's very important, but even just the 2 pages of, like, where all these companies who these companies are owned by, and how it's just like, no, you're oh, man, I lost my train of thought, but I'm sorry about that, but it's like, it's so condensed. That's what I was saying is that just on 2 pages alone is enough to get the average person's attention, and they'll be like, "What else does this book say?" And they could keep going. See, that's what I really, really appreciate about your book is that you could flip to any page and there's something on that will be on that page that will get the average person's attention, and they'll go, "Wait a minute, what does that say?" And a lot of these statists, they wanna prove it wrong, so they'll keep reading, and they'll be like, "Well," and every argument that they could have, and I've read through this book, every argument that can be made is, against what you've written down is like the answers are provided through your hyperlinks and even in the book itself. And the hyperlinks are great there because then you can explore a little further on whatever the link leads you to. But I really like that you did sort of would you call it a bibliography at the end there where you're citing your sources. Um, the
Yeah,
end.
so it's a well, I think there's over 700 endnotes.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, yeah, there's 700 endnotes, and then a lot of what we've done is we've taken because those were disappearing off the internet. I did an interview with Richard Gage on Richard Gage Unleashed, and I was actually taking him through the book, and I was explaining to him how everything is referenced. And as an example, he's got the PDF open on his end, and
Mhm.
he clicks on like he clicks, or it was open on my end, but like I click on like one of the links to just to demonstrate, and it had been taken off of the internet. And it was a piece by Insurge Intelligence where they had posted it to their Medium account. If you don't understand how the website Medium works, you actually pay for Medium. It costs like $5 a month to have a Medium account. And it was an article, exposing how the Pentagon is behind 800 movies and over 1,000 television shows that we knew of at the time. Since then, the people that actually wrote that article and others have come out with, there's a brand new documentary called Theaters of War that breaks down how it's way over, it's thousands of movies and television shows now, where where essentially every movie that you've ever seen that has military equipment, or they used a army base as a backdrop or whatever, the Pentagon has complete script control. They frequently change things, and you can see examples of how they change things. But just we clicked on that link and that was gone. And so what we've done with the Liberator, the 64 gigabit credit card size flash drive that backs up the book, is that we've archived these things that they're deleting off of the internet. So it's control of perception, and we're going to make the evidence go away. And so part of what we're doing with the credit card size flash drive is taking evidence of government criminality and government illegitimacy, and we're archiving it to where it's not going to disappear off the internet because people have it in their back pocket. And then we make it easy for you to share that information with like a friend, a family, a colleague. You're over at somebody's house, take it out of your wallet and go, hey, while we're talking, you should
Yeah.
probably copy this to your hard drive before this disappears. And then here is the evidence of false flag terrorism from 9/11, hoax shootings for gun control. Like they're kind of creating these incidents in an effort to move society in a particular direction. And unless you have the evidence all backed up in a format that is easy for people to exercise, it's not going to be on the internet in the future. And Joe Baker, I see him popping in saying it's a good idea to anchor those URLs at archive.org. I agree with that completely, but maybe archive.org is not going to be around, and so having it on your own hard drive or having it in your back pocket is going to make it impossible for them to hide the evidence of government illegitimacy and criminality. And so that's what we're trying to make it easy to for people to do.
A perfect example of this would be to kind of highlight the this controversial article that was released some time ago. Let's declare pandemic amnesty, and there was a
Yep.
subtitle to that, and the subtitle to it was "We all," something along the lines of "We all did and said things during the pandemic, and maybe we should just like get over it," or something like that. We covered this on Black Pill Digest #1, Sean McCann and I, our joint effort. And when we pulled up the article live on the air, and I had archived the article as a PDF, and when we pulled it up live on the air, we actually were at the Atlantic's website. Now, they didn't scrub the article so much as they changed the tagline. So it was still "Let's declare pandemic amnesty," but the tagline of originally it had said, "We all did and said things, etc." And they changed it to something completely different. And it was like we discovered this live on air. So these things also happen too, where they go back and they change the original headline or tagline or things that were said in the article itself. That way, when somebody goes, "Wait a minute," it's a gaslighting maneuver, a tactic, if you will, where it's like, "No, that's not what the article says. See, I have the article right here, and this is what it says right now." And you're like, "No, that's not what it said in the past." And it's like, well, That's what it says now. You follow me? It's
Oh, so again, it's control of perception, control of the information that society, receives. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go through because there's other examples of that I want to kind of take the audience through, and one of those examples is so we like we break down the propaganda matrix. This is one of the media ownership charts that we feature in the book. And so, one of my kind of stand lines that, people that have heard me before, talk about is, if you try and explain to your friends and family that there's 6 companies running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries to give everybody the illusion that there's all these different information sources in society, they may or may not believe you. But if you show them, one of the media ownership charts from the book, then they are going to believe you. And so one of the things that we've done, this is one of the media ownership charts. One of the things that is new for the latest edition of the book is that we've partnered with the White Rose Society. And if you're not familiar with the White Rose Society, the White Rose Society is the folks that make the little stickers that you get. That here's some examples of White Rose Society, but they make a free file of stickers available where anybody that has one of these Brother QR label printers, can get the free file and print stickers. And so they're decentralizing resistance around the world. There's 60,000 members of the White Rose Society around the world that are printing these stickers on like little, label printers and then distributing them to friends and family and colleagues and at Liberty events and things like that. And so what we've done is we call it the White Rose Mucho Grande, and we have created posters. And so we've taken the visualizations from the book, okay, and we've created a free file that anybody that has access to a large format printer or poster can print the visualizations from the book. And so this is the media ownership chart that shows the 6 companies running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries to give everybody kind of the illusion of choice. Okay. And again, if you had told your family that this existed, they may or may not believe you. But if you show them this chart, then all of a sudden they're like, holy crap, there's 6 companies running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries. And,
mhm.
and again, so part of the magic of the book and the magic of what I'm doing is I'm using visualization to make something that was invisible to most people, and I'm using visualization to make it visible. And so
Yeah.
now, if you didn't understand this is going on, once you see it with your own eyes, or once a friend or a family member or a colleague sees it with their own eyes, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, I didn't understand that this was going on. I didn't realize that it was only a small handful of companies. And then they come to that moment of insight because they saw it with their own eyes. This is another one of the visualizations for book. It's done by Swiss Propaganda Research. It's called The American Empire and Its Media. And so the visualization I showed a second ago, this is really, this one is really, um, who owns the companies and the printing presses and the television studios and the radio studios and the newspapers, okay, the physical ownership of the means of production. This poster is okay, well then how do we control the content that goes into those newspapers and out of over the radio waves or the airwaves? And so, if you want to rob the world, you have to have meetings. And the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission are 3 of the organizations that are used to widely control the content of the daily press to be able to get the editors, the reporters, the publishers in the same room in secure meeting facilities around the world where they can be given their marching orders and told what to do and how to do it on a very, whether it's, the scam of the COVID or the scam of 9/11 or to cover up the Oklahoma City bombing or the Boston Marathon bombing or any of these other, engineered false flag events that they're using to either bring in police state measures or gun control or whatever it is. You got to have meetings. These are the organizations. And so if you didn't know that all of these reporters were connected to these three organizations, and this was kind of before the World Economic Forum uncloaked itself. Okay. If you didn't understand that this is going on, then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a minute. I didn't realize, wait, all these, from Fox News to NBC to CBS to Times of London to the Washington Post to CNN to, to Disney to the Daily Beast to Facebook to Google to New York Post to the Financial Times of London to Foreign Policy Magazine, Slate. All of these guys are all connected together in these three organizations that Jeffrey Epstein was a member of all three of these organizations. You're like, hey, now you come to that moment of insight because you can see the pattern. And now all of a sudden, well, what you're saying with the COVID that everybody was in on it, that all these different news organizations are in on it. Well, once they see this with their own eyes, they're like, oh, well, I guess they all are in on it. And they come to that insight in a way that, they wouldn't have done it if they couldn't have seen, the insight. And so, we've taken, a lot of the different posters from the book that we could only show you, a small, fraction of. Like, so if you didn't understand that Monsanto right here and Bayer and Dow and DuPont, were all military companies that make poisons for the military. Well, why are they buying up hundreds of seed companies? Because they're trying to control the food supply in a military tactic. So you've got companies that make poisons for the military buying seed companies, and you're like, hey, wait a minute. I didn't understand that was going on. Maybe I ought to pay attention if I want to be eating food in the future. And so, that's another example of some of the visualizations. Oh, look, we've got a small handful of companies being funded to buy up almost all of the consumer food companies and consumer products and consumer good companies. And these are the companies that are putting, glyphosated wheat, using fluoridated water in their beverages, using recombinant bovine growth hormone in their dairy products, using genetically modified ingredients in their food products, using aspartame, using BPA and BPS in can linings. And you're like, hey, wait a minute. These are the companies that are putting harmful things into the food supply. What is going on? And so each time you see one of these lines, that's where they've been funded to buy up an entire brand or brand segment. So it's the banks giving these companies unlimited capital that they create out of thin air using fractional reserve banking, even though it's inflationary, even though it's stealing the value out of everybody else's money. And these are the companies that are putting harmful chemicals, refined grains, refined sugar, addictive, using glutamates to make food addictive. All of a sudden it starts to kind of make sense when you see the pattern. And again, human beings are really, really good pattern recognition machines. And when they see the pattern, they're like, hey, wait a minute, that's a pattern. I didn't understand that was going on. Now I'm going to start paying attention. We've got monopolization of the beer companies. We've got monopolization of defense contractors right here. There used to be kind of 30, 40, major defense contractors. Now we're down to 4. They've all just sucked up, down to we've collapsed 30 plus companies into 4 companies, over the years. Here's one for the airlines. There used to be, again, 30 something companies. This one was done in 1915. There's been even more consolidation since then. Okay. And so, we're providing certain companies unlimited money, and we're allowing them to, the ability to buy up the competition, to create monopolies that are harmful, for the population as large. Here's global meat processing. Okay, again, dozens of companies now, consolidated down into the WH Group, Tyson Food, JBS, and others. This is going on in almost every single industry. Here's banking. Here's dozens of banks that have now been consolidated into four, essentially four giant, mega banks. I'll just do a couple more of these, just to so you can see kind of the thing. Here's beverages. Okay. Coca-Cola and Pepsi, these are all the individual brands and brand beverages that they own. Dr. Pepper, Snapple Group, PepsiCo. Just do one more. Which one will we do? Organic food. Okay, here's the consolidation of the organic food industry. And the organic food industry is being bought up by companies like Kellogg, Cargill, General Mills, ConAgra, Purdue Farms, Tyson's, Miller Coors. And so stuff that, used to be organic, is it still organic? Do you still trust it, once it's been bought by Cargill? Are you still going to, trust that brand if you know that it's been, bought up by Tyson Foods, or, some of these others? Hanes Celestial is one of the big consolidators, right here. And so, these again take something that was invisible and make it visible in a very, 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 very kind of powerful, powerful way.
Yeah, these so like we could say until we're blue in the face about get rid of that real quick. We could say in what I was about to say is we could repeat these things to our family members or our friends, and they could say, "Oh, but with this book, we have evidence, and that evidence eliminates doubt." And it inspires thought in people when you can provide a visual aid to say, "No, no, no, I'm not just, talking a bunch of BS here. It's really going on. See, look, here are some company names that you would recognize, and they are trying to own everything." And it makes more sense when you really start taking into consideration that they are making moves for it's a globalist agenda. So when they're consolidating companies, that means that when it's time to kind of send marching orders out, there's less people to send those orders out to, and then they'll be in charge of everything. The little puppets on the strings. Less puppets means more control, and that's kind of one of the ways that I kind of look at it. So it's wonderful what you've put together there. Again, I can't praise you enough. So you know,
Well, I appreciate that, but like we're all in it together, and one of the things that I think is good is that there's no way to really stop this signal in the information age. They can continue buying the media companies, but people are just turning off the media companies, and more people are getting their news and their information from the self-directed internet, the authentic voices of the self-directed internet. And so, I think that's, kind of one of the shining lights here is people like, the magician can only do the trick as long as people don't understand that he's a magician and he's doing a trick. But once you understand how the magician does the trick, it's hard to get fooled by the trick. And so it really is this revolution that's only going in one direction as people figure out, oh, wait a minute, they're controlling the information that I'm getting on these controlled, channels. then they're going to turn off the control channels. I'm going to just show a couple more one pagers, from the book. I had to kind of like reboot here, but here's another, some of the new, the new content from the book. So we'd broken down in the fourth edition, who is the Bilderberg Group, who is the Council on Foreign Relations, who is the Trilateral Commission. But really, starting in 2020, when the fourth edition came out, almost like right after the fourth edition came out, they pulled the COVID, and the World Economic Forum uncloaked itself and became visible and took a kind of leadership role in coordinating the activities of over 1,000 member companies, okay, uh, to get the corporations to go along with the COVID. And so the World Economic Forum, I'd heard about them, but really they hadn't uncloaked. It was almost like they had like established it, just waiting for this moment for it to take the starring and important role of like the COVID. And so what we've done in the fifth edition is we break down, who the World Economic Forum is. What we do and what we're very proud of now is how we penetrate the cabinets around the world. And so we break down, who the World Economic Forum is and how they came along. And the short version is that in the Klaus Schwab appears to have been recruited by former Secretary of State, Rockefeller advisor, and head of the National Security Council, Henry Kissinger, during a seminar series at Harvard funded by the CIA in 1967, where Kissinger was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and then two Council on Foreign Relations members, Herman Kahn and John Kenneth Galbraith, traveled to Europe with Schwab to help him, begin recruiting members for what was then the European Management Forum. It would become the World Economic Forum. But essentially, the World Economic Forum appears to be a front group for the Council on Foreign Relations, where they were setting up, because they were already at that, at the time they were setting it up, people were starting to figure out, who was pulling the strings with respect to, members of the Council on Foreign Relations penetrating the cabinets around the world. And so now we have a new kind of shell company, organization, the World Economic Forum, that is now going to penetrate the cabinets around the world to take the heat off the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. But we break that down in detail. Mark Passio and myself did a open letter to Freemasonry. It's time to clean out the lodge, where we essentially say, hey, we know that not all Freemasons are bad, but hey, Freemasonry, it's time for y'all to clean your own house and stop the members that are abusing the lodge system for personal gain from doing that, if you want to have respectability in the world. This is one I'm really kind of proud of, or a couple of them I'm really kind of proud of. I call it CIA Democrats and Republicans. And again, a visualization is worth 1,000 words. And so, are you getting your politicians from the CIA? And so it appears that the CIA and the intelligence agencies are installing politicians in the United States the same way they do that in foreign countries. And so this visualization breaks down, the CIA has an estimated workforce of about 21,000, or probably somewhere around 150,000 living employees or ex-employees. So in a nation of 330 plus million people, the statistical distribution of ex-CIA employees in the government or in Congress should be 0 to 1, And so now we're looking at, a lot of ex-CIA people that are now being installed as representatives and senators here in the United States. And then we have another one called the CIA News Network and the Mighty Wurlitzer. Are you getting your news from the CIA? And again, a visualization is worth 1,000 words. And so I estimate there's probably about 200 people that get to talk about politics and current events on the television, all right, on the major news networks, the news shows, etc. And here's almost 24 examples of where considerable portion of those 200 people that actually get to talk about politics on current events are known ex-CIA employees. Anderson Cooper, many people don't know, he was a 2-year intern in the CIA before he got his first news network job and began traveling the world for something called Channel One, reporting on things. But again, here's some examples of many of the folks you see. If you didn't understand that the folks that you were seeing on the nightly news were all ex-CIA employees, this visualization kind of really brings it home. And then we break down how perception is controlled with crisis actors, Mockingbird media, and created legends. And we explain what a crisis actor is, and we give some really good examples. We explain what the Mockingbird media is, how it works, give some examples. And then what is a created legend. And in this, we break down the background of Barack Obama and kind of make the case that Obama was created and installed by the intelligence agencies as president of the United States, as an example of what we just gave you with the House members and the Senate. And so kind of we already kind of talked about some of these other things, but that's kind of like the rest of the book. And then we got a bunch. I think we mentioned. I think the last thing that I'm really going to talk about is Amazon, because you gave a really good example a while back of how the Atlantic magazine was changing the subtitle of that very important article that created a fury among people that understand the scam of the COVID. And so that ability to change that article, well, Amazon, many people don't know this, has been caught uh, burning books on their Kindle and Fire ebook readers. Get it? Funny, haha, Kindle and Fire. And so a lot of people don't realize this, but over a decade ago, Amazon was caught um, remotely deleting the book 1984 off of everybody's Kindle. So everybody that had bought the book 1984 on the Kindle watched it go down the memory hole. If you're familiar with the book 1984, the protagonist, Winston Smith, works in the Ministry of Information, where his job is to make things go down the memory hole. And so Amazon is a funny ha ha when they tested the ability to digitally burn books in the future. The book they chose to test it was 1984. They made the book 1984 go down the memory hole. Ha ha. And so I think that that's part of the push of these ebook platforms, ebook readers, is in the future they're just going to change they're going to remotely delete books. They're going to change the words in books. They're going to try and control perception by remotely changing the information on people's Kindle and Fire. They're going to burn books on the Kindle and the Fire in the future. And so we break down the case that Amazon is really a Mason. You can get anything you want from a Mason in 2 days with free shipping, but you shouldn't if you can avoid it. And so that's something else that we kind of break down in entirety. And then, we've just got just tons of new memes, updated memes. We took a lot of the memes that were low res, and we made them high res. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. We updated that for the Biden administration, showing that all the major policies between Biden and Trump were in lockstep. Whether it was the COVID, whether it was forcing unnecessary vaccines, taxing or thefting you, them giving orders, you obeying, NSA, CIA surveillance, fascist crony capitalism, private prisons for victimless crimes, regulatory capture, no bid contracts, trillions missing from the Pentagon, the TSA molestation and security theater, fractional reserve banking. They're all the parties, both the Republicans and Democrats. They're in lockstep on all of the important the things that are important to the ruling oligarchy. It really is just these football issues that they divide people on. And so, we've got some of the funniest memes in Liberty. We take down the cops, we take down the military. It is a full scale assault. And so that's some of the important new information. We've got some new ideas about how to find good politicians. That's new. This is kind of cool. This is a "Don't Rob Your Neighbors This Election Year" brochure, where we put it into the book. You don't have to actually tear the page out of your book, but we've got a kind of this trifold brochure in here that you can, print out and distribute to the people on your block, asking them not to rob you this election season for the voluntarists that are in the crowd. So there's just absolutely, we got thick red line stuff. There's
Right.
just a ton of new content in the fifth edition, to where even if you have a fourth edition, you're just absolutely not going to be disappointed with everything that is in it. A lot of things have just been updated from the our calendar of libertarian and voluntarist events, to just our list of trusted and untrusted sources. Here's a picture of the credit card size flash drive that we had mentioned earlier, and so it's now up to 64 gigabytes. And so some of the new things that are on the flash drive this year, one of the new additions for the fifth edition is now there are hundreds of prepping and survivalism and self sufficiency resources. So if you're worried about an economic collapse, or maybe even a grid down economic collapse, we've got hundreds and hundreds of resources to keep in your back pocket. Everything from how do you purify water, how do you cook with survivable food, first aid, bushcraft, what to do when there's no doctor, what to do when there's no dentist, you name it. Hundreds and hundreds of prepping and survivalism resources, alternatives to things like Gmail and Google Chrome and Windows and YouTube and all the untrusted platforms. We've got new and improved things for that. It just goes on and on and on. It's just an entirely new book. It looks better, it reads better. You name it, we got it. It is our gift to the world.
Those brochures that you mentioned a few minutes ago, those are on the Liberator as well. That's where you can print them out from. You mentioned
Mhm.
printing them out, so they're included on the Liberator. That's the flash drive, the Liberator, and it's
Mhm.
got this cool little. How it works is it's got this cool little tab that folds out from the side, and you just plug that into your regular USB 3 drive, and off to the races, and it's amazing. And you can go on there, and you got all the memes and all the, like, now you have a bunch of the articles included on the Liberator as well, so that's wonderful. Something that popped into my head when you mentioned Anderson Cooper, he's a part of the Vanderbilt family. He's a relative to the Vanderbilts. right? And they're a pretty big, like robber baron type family, aren't they?
Not only were they a robber baron family, but they were his uncle, and we break it down in the book in that one pager on the are you getting your news from the CIA? His uncle was in the OSS,
Wow.
was a high-ranking member within the intelligence agencies. That's probably how he got his internship, right? Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And so that is, those are the kind of the facts that help people understand, how these people are all connected, to the intelligence agencies through family connections. Again, it's intergenerational organized crime, running the government, the media, and academia, and they're using the intelligence agencies to run the media. And then, there's one more. I'm going to be adding one more, one pager, kind of cataloging the work of Mint Press News, and I don't know if in addition to them controlling perception through the news and politicians, but there have been dozens of CIA agents discovered moderating content at Facebook and Twitter. And so essentially, and Google. So it was the CIA at Facebook, and that came out through an expose that Mint Press News. And if you just were to search engine Mint Press News, CIA, and Facebook content moderators, you'd be able to get the research and scholarship behind that. But it was FBI agents, dozen plus FBI agents at Twitter, and that came out through the Elon Musk, Matt Taibbi, Twitter file dump release, where it came out that they were moderating, content at Twitter as well. So the intelligence agencies are controlling perception by moderating what is going out over the major social media platforms. So it's another way, an example of them controlling perception by controlling the information you receive, by stifling and strangling the authentic voices on social media.
Yeah. I was listening to Grand Theft World, hosted by Richard Grove, last week, and he had on Dr. Shiva. I forget the gentleman's full name, but he
Mhm.
was he was on a tear about the Twitter files and
Mhm.
the Intercept article that exposed the backdoor login portal for government officials and the three-letter organizations like the CIA, well, the FBI, I think primarily, that would be able to log into Facebook and basically send down their orders of different people and or content that should be censored, and that this information was nothing new, that this gentleman, Dr. Shiva, was actually trying to blow the whistle on that about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and that he was promptly ignored, and then next thing you know, it's all over the place, and it's the point is that these things have been mentioned many times in the past, that they're doing these types of things, and now it's all kind of strategically being validated in a way. It makes me. I'm very incredulous to Elon Musk. I really don't. I really don't trust what he's doing over there at Twitter. I don't understand it. Maybe it's. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't trust it.
I
But
don't either. I think he's DARPA's boy to release technologies that have been, the research was paid for on the taxpayer dime, and
yeah,
privatize the profits, and be a kind of, front man for the military industrial complex to, do things that wouldn't be trusted. If the military industrial complex did them openly themselves, like Starlink as an example, Neuralink, Starlink, these are all, I'd bet you that Tesla came out of, the military's research into battery operated, vehicles. I would bet, like he's launching rockets for the military. This is, you don't nobody launches rockets for the military unless you're in bed with the military. And so I don't know what I think they're trying to save the credibility of the platform. And they came out today. It came out, in the headlines today that they're censoring the Project Veritas story. So the idea that censorship is over at Twitter is belied by the fact that they're censoring, some of the information coming out from Project Veritas. They're still censoring information at Twitter. They're just trying to make it look like they're not when they're still being caught censoring information at Twitter.
Yeah, that Project Veritas, that that Project Veritas video is an extremely important bit of information to get it into the public's head that they're being lied to, and that there are things going on behind closed doors that we are not supposed to know, according to them. Like we should know. We should know that that these things are true, that they are experimenting on these whatever they are. They're experimenting on these viruses, they call them, and it's really just not okay. Not okay for them to be doing that. But that's a good point, because you raise a good point there about Elon Musk trying to win the public's favor by offering them this uncensored free speech platform, and then turning around and then censoring some of the most important information that the public should know. And they're doing it by and it's they're doing it in a strange way, where they're saying that Project Veritas is saying all of these things, and it's like, no, the Project Veritas isn't saying them, they're exposing it, you know and it's the people from Pfizer that are saying those things, not Project Veritas. And it's like, well, whose side are you really on? This dude Elon Musk is making posts, and he's saying Vox Deus. What was he saying? Vox Deus, Vox Populi, or the other way around, which is the voice of the people is the voice of God in
Mhm.
Latin. And it's just like he's making all these polls at the beginning about what should we do with this company, huh? And then he goes and stabs the very people in the back he made all these promises to, and he like bends the knee to other foreign governments and stuff like that, and agrees to censor and all these other things. He's just falling right back into line with the very thing that he was supposedly against at the very beginning of his little campaign there to buy Twitter. And his I'm starting to think more and more that his motive is to have a public platform such as Twitter in order to aggregate the information that one would need in a digital space in order to construct an artificial intelligence capable of things that are really nothing that we should be getting our hands into or on. So, like with this Chat GPT thing that's been very popular
Mhm.
over the last couple of weeks, we need to be aware that a technology like that has to be getting its information from somewhere. It's sourcing all of its information and how it constructs its Chat GPTs. If anyone's not familiar, it's this AI that can write papers, and you can have conversations with it. I haven't used it. I refuse to use it. I mean, I'm on the internet all the time. I make posts and stuff on different social media sites, so I'm not exactly, my hands aren't exactly clean in this theory of mine, but essentially what it is, it's a very advanced chat bot, and it's got to be getting its brain from somewhere. And we know that this Elon Musk guy is like all about AI and wanting to do the Neuralink and everything like that. But enough about him. But yeah, man. So where are we? Where are we now? So what else are you still able to get like the package deal with like Larkin Rose is the most dangerous superstition, and what anarchy isn't, and three friends free. I know Larkin didn't write that last one, but through are we still able to get a package deal like that with volume 5?
Oh, absolutely. So we've got a number of different deals at government-scam.com/store. We've got a bundle that includes Larkin Rose's The Most Dangerous Superstition and The Liberator for I think it's like $60 for all three of them. The book is 30, the Liberator is 30, the combo deal is 45. And then I guess the most important new kind of exciting thing that I should mention, and I'll go ahead and kind of share my screen one last time here, is we got this thing called the pop-up gorilla bookstore. So one of the interesting things about the book is the book has become one of the rare titles where people are buying the book in bulk. And so the book has been growing exponentially. And so over 25% of the copies that we sell are sold as what we call a friends bundle of either 5 copies, 10 copies. We've got 5 copies and 5 flash drives. We've got 10 copies and 10 flash drives. But this year, for the new and improved for the 5th edition, is we got something called the pop-up gorilla bookstore. And so, if you or a friend have a retail location, you can now buy 10 copies of the book, 10 flash drives, and kind of everything that you need to attractively merchandise the book in a small footprint. And so you get a kind of one-time $50 retail kit, which has signage, a sign holder, 2 book stands, a display for the Liberators. The Liberator now has uh, a retail package for it. It's like this really, kind of like cool folder and everything that the Liberator like goes into, and it's got its own UPC code. And so it's $275 for like the starter kit with 10 books and 10 Liberators. And then depending on, how many you sell as $45 bundles, you make $155 to $300 net profit, once you sell everything, and then you refill it for $220, and then you make even more money. And so then you make $220 to $370 net profit. So anybody that's going to Liberty conference or to we were just at we were at Morelia. I think we had the best at the Greater Reset at Morelia. I want to say we sold probably um almost 30, books and over a dozen Liberators at like that conference alone. And so, it's the opportunity to go to a conference or a festival and make some real cash money while spreading the ideas of liberty. And so that's something that we're real excited about. And then it's not on the website yet, but the other thing I'm excited about is that we just struck a deal to we're going to be reselling the DVDs of James Corbett, and so we're going to have those in the store this coming up week. But we're going to have the Media Matrix and False Flags: The Secret History of Al Qaeda on DVD in our store as well at government-scam.com. And then finally, here are just some of the bundles that we mentioned. Probably literally one of the number one bundles that we sell is the Everything Bundle, which is the book, the flash drive, The Most Dangerous Superstition, What Anarchy Isn't by Larkin Rose, Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage by the Bad Quaker, Three Friends Free by Nam Pashenta, and Anarchy Exposed. We call it the Sampler of Liberty. It's like $100. We sell just an absolute ton of those all over the world. We've sold to over 22 foreign countries, in addition to the United States. And I'm just amazed at how many of these everything bundles that we sell, but that's something else that's very popular as well.
Yeah, that is what I got when I uh made my way over to government-scam.com to get my own copy of your book. And I was like, "Wow, look, I can get so much more." And it's,
Yeah.
it's totally worth it.
It's
Absolutely
the
worth it.
it's the deal of the day, it really is, and,
Oh, yeah.
I like to think I think we're probably Larkin Rose's number 2 channel of distribution after Amazon, and his own website, so, we sell a lot of Larkin Rose on the site.
Yeah, that's great. He's a phenomenal author.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what, now that you've got this project done, what does the future hold for you?
Well, I'm working on another book on the scam of the COVID, and so the one thing that I really hope to cover was kind of the COVID in more detail. And the book was a year late in getting done because I took on the COVID, and what I discovered was there was just no way. Like I kept like the more research I did, the more evidence of criminality and foreknowledge and disaster capitalism that I just kept discovering. And I'm like, oh, I've got to include that. I've got to include that. I've got to include that. And it got so big that I finally had to just break off all of the content, almost all the content of the COVID, off of, to create another book. And so that book, the all everything that I'd done until the point of where I broke it off is on our Substack at artofliberty.substack.com under an article entitled "Solving COVID: The COVID-19 Vaccine Drug Scam Timeline." And so, I don't want to, give it away, but it's a eugenics program. And I break down, kind of going back to the founding of eugenics, all of the different vaccine drug scams that they've pulled off before the COVID to kind of, put the COVID in context as not something that came out of nowhere, but just as a continuation of AIDS and some of these other, fake pandemics from swine flu one, swine flu two to, SARS, you name it. But these are, we're going to trick the population into taking harmful vaccines by manufacturing pandemics. And then steer them into things that are ineffective at the same time that the government stockpiles and spends billions and billions of dollars on drugs that people don't want, don't need, or kind of scared or forced into taking. And so we break all of that down on our Substack at artofliberty.substack.com.
That's great, man. That's awesome. Well, we're getting up to about an hour and a half here. Is there anything else that we're missing here, or anything else that you'd wish to cover before we call it a night?
No, I'd say the final thing is if you're interested in just kind of keeping up with our work, we publish something called 5 Meme Friday, at artofliberty.org/subscribe. And the Art of Liberty Foundation is our startup public policy organization where we're starting to, do a think tank. Um, and the think tank is, a voluntarist think tank that is focused on studying the problem of government as organized crime, not just the boss hog, we're, $14,000 toilet seats and $400,000, F-35 helmets and billions of dollars missing from the Pentagon. But the fact that government in itself is illegitimate, you don't really need it. The world's a self-organizing system. And so, everybody, all the other major think tanks in DC kind of pretend that government is legitimate and they play along that it's legitimate. And we want to have a voluntarist think tank focused on it as not just illegitimate, but the open criminality that is going on, the trillions of dollars missing from the pentagram, the billions in physical cash missing from Iraq, the military industrial complex fraud ranging from the Pentagon's Bishops Fund to the Fat Leonard scandal. we're being robbed for trillions of dollars handed to private companies and private corporations and banks through the TARP, the TALF, the bailouts and stimulus associated with the COVID. We're getting robbed. We want to focus on it as organized crime. And the best way to keep track of our work is this weekly newsletter we do called 5 Meme Friday, where it's not just a summary of the news, but it's some of the funniest memes in Liberty. And those go out either Friday or Monday. It'll go out this Monday instead of Friday, but we call it 5 Meme Friday.
Yeah, it's great. I've been rolling over laughing at those memes for months and months now, like just over a year. So I really appreciate that. Every week I get to look at my emails and oh, there it is, and it's a nice little cap at the end of the week. So yeah, so you're gonna be at the Liberty Forum
I'll
and
be at the Liberty Forum, and I'll also be at the Conscious Life Expo next weekend in Los Angeles. There's going to be 10,000 people at the Los Angeles Hilton for the Conscious Life Expo. I'll be speaking there in the Newport A Room on, I think, Saturday night.
excellent. And then what are you doing at the Liberty Forum over in Manchester?
I'm just going to be exhibiting and selling books there and checking in on my friends at the Free State Project. I'm a member of the Free State Project. Haven't completed the move yet, but it's one of my favorite liberty projects. There's over 20,000 folks that have committed to move to New Hampshire and roll back government to just protecting life, liberty, and property. There's over 6,200 in the state. And so I think that New Hampshire is going to be the first state to secede. And I'm trying to do everything in my power to accelerate that as fast as humanly possible so we can create a laboratory of liberty in New Hampshire and prove to the world that you do not need government to have a world class first world society. In fact, liberty will flourish if you just get government out of the way. And so the Free State Project is, I think, one of the leading opportunities to do that.
You couldn't be more correct. I'm a member of the Free State Project as well, and
Woo!
and I live here in the number one greatest state of New Hampshire. I mean, anarchist as I am, I understand that in order to avoid something that I mean, I'm not a violent person. I do not I do not appreciate or condone violence. So I want to do everything I can to avoid that. If that's going to be an outcome, I don't want it to be an outcome. I want to avoid it. So I like how you put it about rolling it back, taking steps away from it, and just easing our way into liberty and easing our way into 100% freedom and avoiding uh, a very violent, bloody mess, And if it gets brought there, you really don't want that, people out there. You don't want it to be that way. We do
Yep.
want to have a peaceful resolution to all of this, and you know, um, we'll keep offering our peaceful resolution to these sickos until the time comes that we have to defend ourselves, which by whichever way, any means necessary. But what we're doing up here in New Hampshire is phenomenal. It's great and completely. It's a great voluntarist effort up here, and I really appreciate your involvement in that. And I'm really new to the scene of the FSP, and I'm trying my best to like kind of get in and see what they're all about. I'm in contact with a bunch of people, and I'm emailing people back and forth or whatever. If there's anybody out there who would want to help me afford a ticket to the Liberty Forum, I would really appreciate it. The times are pretty tough, so I'm trying my best to get over to the Liberty Forum so I can meet Etienne in person, and that would like be a dream come true to me. To be honest with you, Etienne, I would really really love to be able to meet you, but I can't do it on my own, and it really stinks. But the thing is that we have this money situation, and I don't have a lot of it, but I would really like to be able to go to the Liberty Forum. So if anybody out there is willing to, like, donate like 5 or 10 bucks, so it's not all on your shoulders to make it so I can like put some money toward getting a ticket to that, I'd really appreciate it. And it wouldn't be money wasted for sure. And so that's, please help.
I'll kick in some for that too, man.
Oh,
I'm in for a
dude.
little bit of that as well, so we'll get you there.
Oh man, if anyone, yeah, man, that makes me so happy. So if anyone is interested in donating to me for that cause, you can go to my website at freeyourmindne.com, and you can go to the donation page there, and there's a couple of different options. I have a PayPal account, and it's like the easiest way for people to decide how much that they want to kick in toward making that kind of thing happen. And I'd really appreciate it. It's awkward for me to be asking this kind of question because I'm not used to asking for that kind of thing, but it's getting a little tight. You know, but this is another thing about the wonderful thing about having such information about this, like through Etienne's book, is that can kind of we can mentally, empower ourselves to like keep the fight going. So Joe Baker wants to know URL and type. Let's see. Hold on one second. Here we go. All right. Da, 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 da. So, anyways, yeah. So I got a couple of things here that I wanted to go over before we actually really call it a night. And let's see. Do I have them pulled up? Hold on. Not usually. So I've been trying to help out Mark with making people aware of his of his course. It's a technology seminar. Let me pull it up here real quick. And so the How to Become the True Media uh, is a online technology skill sharing seminar, and he's bringing it back for 2023. It's an intensive 23-week technology skill set sharing seminar hosted on Telegram by Mark Passio of whatonearthishappening.com. It's very important to me that I help him out with this because I took the course, and a lot of the things that I've learned have really helped me out immensely when it comes to being a content creator, to share these this knowledge of liberty and being an abolitionist, because it's really what it's all about: abolishing slavery and making it so that we can see freedom, hopefully in our lifetimes. And that's the goal. But there's going to be people that come after us, and they deserve freedom just as much as we do. So it's up to us to try to do the work. So we're kind of doing this. We're kind of in this battle. We're in this kind of spiritual war, and it's taking place largely on the internet. So when we're talking about being a voice for freedom and really speaking up, part of that is being able and willing to make a YouTube channel or make an Odyssey channel or find a way to create content. You can figure out ways to use the internet to do the work that it takes to aggregate the information, and maybe create your own version of something similar compared to government, the biggest scam in history exposed. And the more people that are speaking up, the louder the overall voice is going to be. So this year, Mark is having it every Monday from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., and that's Eastern Standard Time. And enrollment opens on April 1st. So go to howtobecomthetruemedia.com, maybe bookmark it or whatever you got to do, and just keep an eye out on that. So, yeah, my name is James Cordiner. My website is freeyourmindne.com, and I am the host of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. This evening, uh, I'm really thankful for Chris Jansen again for stepping up and basically just sitting in the green room here and attaching his channels to the stream. So if you're watching this on something like End Evil, on one of Chris Jansen's channels on Twitch or Facebook or YouTube, then you might have been like, "Who's this guy?" Well, that's who I am. So, and thank you, Chris, for that. And you know, any final words from you, Etienne, before we call it a night?
No, I mean, I want to just kind of salute you for what you do. I think all of us are in this together. It's 1,000 flowers blooming. That's why we're gonna win. They can't censor us all. More and more people are, figuring out how the scam of government works, and it's everybody together. So I wanted to thank you for what you do for liberty as well, and I hope everybody supports you to get you to the Liberty Forum, because I think it's an important conference.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the more of us that can gather around and swap stories or share ideas, the better, you know. So thank you everybody out there. And thank you, Etienne, for being here. Give a shout out about all of your websites just real quick for the audio listeners, and I'll have them in the show notes and they'll be a click away. But I want people to hear it from you.
The book is at government
You're on
hyphen.
mute. Oh, wait. There was a lag. Sorry, you weren't on mute.
The book is at government-scam.com. You can subscribe to 5 Meme Friday at artofliberty.org/subscribe. And you can find my writings on the scam of the COVID, and the scam of HBO's The Anarchists, and the scam of Narcapulco at artofliberty.substack.com. And those are really the best 3 places to find me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. This is great. I can't wait to get my hands on the updated version of Volume 5 myself. And and you as soon as I do, we can expect me, if it's okay with you, to do another broadcast about it in the same fashion in which I did when I first started live streaming. So I'm excited for that.
I'll get you a copy out tomorrow. So
Oh
we'll
wow,
get a
dude.
copy out. Yeah, I'll get you a copy out tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Last words for me, as I always end these streams, I want to remind people that, yeah, we have some pretty tumultuous times ahead of us. We're living in a pretty hectic world right now, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And change happens through you. So you have to look at yourself and see what you can do to change your own actions, and hope that that has an effect on the actions of the people around you. It's about doing the right thing, learning the difference between right and wrong action, and choosing with your own free will to do the right thing, and not because you expect a reward or a pat on the back or an attaboy from somebody that you think that you need it from. It's about doing the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. I love you all. Have a great night.